This meeting is being recorded.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining the third edition of Alukwane Anybody's Insider Series. My name is Mimi Posong, and I am an associate in the firm's Banking and Finance, Private Equity and Startup Practices. The Insider Series is an initiative of the firm's Private Equity and Startup Practices, and it aims to drive conversations within the African startup, tech, and investment space. It does this by spotlighting key stakeholders within the ecosystem who provide insights into key issues and events. Just before I introduce our guest speaker, I would like our audience to know that you could leave any questions you want in the Q&A box, which will be answered during the webinar. And for questions not answered due to time constraints, would be addressed on our social media pages. For today's session, we will be entering the mind of a global leader, entrepreneur, and active angel investor in the tech and media startups, as well as an award-winning executive producer and founder of Biola Alabi Media. Ms. Alabi is also the founder of Grooming for Greatness, a fellowship and mentorship program aimed at cultivating leadership skills in young, aspiring professionals and entrepreneurs. She's also the publisher of The Adventures of Lara and Dara, which was named the Young Readers Library Book of Summer 2019. And she also executive produced the highly acclaimed Banana Island Ghost, which streamed on Netflix, and a personal favorite TV show of mine, Big Brother Africa. As Managing Director of Mnet Africa, Ms. Alabi helped transform the broadcasting and film industry on the continent, launching 7 Africa Magic channels, as well as the Africa Magic Viewers' Choice Awards. Ms. Alabi also has an undergraduate degree in public and community health from the University of Cincinnati and has completed executive education programs at Harvard, Yale, and Oxford. Fun facts, Ms. Alabi and I are both Oxford alumni. Hello, Ms. Alabi, we're so delighted to have you.
It's so nice to be here. Thank you so much. How are you today?
Fine, thank you. Yourself? Okay, just to kick off, could you kindly talk us through how you landed your first role in media and just a brief overview of your career progression then onwards?
Sure. Started out really trying to find out what I wanted to do, and actually wanted to be wanted to go to medical school. And in the process of taking time off to see if what I wanted to do, I thought, okay, what can I do in the meantime? I got a job in marketing, and I got 2 jobs in marketing. One of my first marketing jobs was working on a consumer strategy for the entry into the US market of a Korean automobile company. And so really doing a lot of marketing work and working directly with agencies. Really got to see a lot of the making of television commercials, which I had never been exposed to before. And I was just fascinated by that process and really loved it. The second time I got another marketing job, which was an early e-commerce, one of the first online college textbooks companies in the US. I worked also with the agency, worked on our commercial, and I kept on thinking in the back of my head that I really like this form of storytelling, using video to communicate with consumers, to really get, and then having sort of the consumers respond. I mean, we had these really amazing commercials that consumers responded to. So I kind of knew that I was interested in something I'd never even thought I would be interested in, which was media, but I literally had no idea how to get into media. And I knew no one in media. I mean, there was no one I knew that was working in media. And it wasn't a career that family and friends talked about. So as much as I was working with people in media, I didn't even understand how to do it. And then I got really lucky by getting a job in a marketing job at Sesame Street in New York. And once I got into Sesame Street, even though I was in their marketing department, I started to do media projects. I started to manage projects that actually had media elements. So doing home videos for specific products, for specific initiatives, working with external partners to help them get their message out using the Sesame Street Muppets. And then that just sort of escalated into producing, into thinking more about how you use this to communicate globally. And that led me into sort of my international work with Sesame Street, which then brought me back home and started doing more Sesame Street work on the continent, trying to get Sesame started in different markets, and ran into DSTV. And on that journey, started working for DSTV. And then from DSTV, worked for a telco company that was also trying to become a media company, and then started my own business eventually. And I tell you all the way to starting my own business, because really starting my own business was a game changer for me when it came to angel investing. I think as an entrepreneur trying to raise business for projects, and I mean, I had a track record. People knew who I was, but I still had challenges raising money for my projects. And so I think during this time, I then actually started investing in other people's projects because I realized how tough that journey was. So it's like at the same time I was raising money, but at the same time, I also could see how difficult it was for entrepreneurs starting out, and some people without any track record. And that's when I started angel investing. So I think that when you're a professional, you invest differently to when you're an entrepreneur. And being an entrepreneur has made me a better investor across the board. It's made me a better investor across the board in equities, when it comes to venture, when it comes to angel. It's just changed the way I approach investing. And I'm glad to share that today. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. That was so insightful and so inspiring. I think what us Gen Zers will call is actual life goals.
It takes a while. It takes a while, and a lot of confusion along the way, but it will happen. It will happen.
Yeah, thank you. That's very encouraging. So yeah, I think that leads me to my next question is, so I think some people might not really understand what it means to be an angel investor. So if you could just please kind of explain exactly what you think your role is as an angel investor, and maybe how that kind of like differs from maybe a venture capitalist. I think that could help. Yeah.
Sure. So I think this happens every day. You have an idea, you talk to friends and family, and every once in a while, someone will say, look, here, I'll help you get this idea off the track. It happens in filmmaking, it happens in television shows. People have an idea. They can't sleep. I mean, what happens is when you have this idea, you just can't sleep. You're constantly telling people about this idea. You're constantly telling people, and it could be something, it could be anything. It could be that I believe that there is a market for flowers, and I want to bring a container in from, Amsterdam or, wherever, Kenya, and I want to sell these flowers because I believe that there's a real market here. And the person continues to tell you about it, and they're really putting together their plans. They're showing you they're telling you why this makes sense. And eventually, as either a family member or a friend, you write a check and you say, look, I'm going to help you get this started. I want part of this business. And that could really be because of the person's motivation, because of the person's excitement. Their energy is so effusive that you're like, you know what? This could be a big thing in the end. I want to be part of it. And that's really what happens around the world. What happens on the continent is that we don't have enough people that have that type of access to family and friends that can write you that first check. And that could be as little even as $1,000 to $2,000, which is why we really try to promote the need for angel investing on the continent. It is really that first money in that helps you get your idea started, that helps you expand the idea, that helps you grow this idea. It is the thing that basically, I feel like, it's the thing that's why it's called angel investing, because it gives you those wings that you can actually start to use to fly rather than the dreams dying on you. So that's sort of really a good way to think about it. But it is really that first money in. It's that first group of money in. So a lot of times we call it the friends, family, and fools round, which is basically people betting on this person. And then angels come in right after that. But on the continent, what we find is that angels are actually filling that role as well. So that's sort of what angel investing is.
Thank you so much. That was so clear and so helpful, which leads me on to my next question. You mentioned about kind of things that maybe when you're inspired or you like a particular business. So I think I want us to know, what are the key indicators that you as an angel investor would consider prior to taking a decision to back a startup? Or like just key things in your business?
Yeah. So just exactly what I was saying. It's sort of that person that has a sense of leadership, that really understands that industry. They understand the business. They've either been in a business before and they said, look, these are the pain points of being in this industry, and we can open these pain points up for customers, and that can unlock a certain amount of opportunities. So number one is, who are the people working on this problem? Is this a real problem? Sometimes there are nice to have solutions and there must have solutions. And so you're thinking to yourself, is this a must have solution that we need to, that this person is presenting to me as an angel? And so we're always asking ourselves, who's the team? And so I always really encourage people to really build a really great team around them, especially if you've worked with people. This is the time to build those relationships. I mean, I know you were saying Gen Zs and millennials, this is the time to build those relationships as you start your career. You work with people on teams, stay in touch with them, even if you go on to different jobs, and you can start to see, I mean, there was a Twitter thread I read the other day, and they said, you know, at a certain age, the person was probably around my, they said, starting a new startup is like getting the band back together. You have to call everyone and pull them out from different places, people that are in partial retirement, people that are, so it's sort of like, you know, this reunion band, like, let's do one more time, let's bring down the guy or something like that. So it's really important to start building those relationships like that, because a lot of times it is calling people that you used to work with to say, you know, I know this person is amazing when it comes to building this type of technology, this type of platform. They built it for us at my old company, or they would have built it for us if they had the opportunity. They were the ones that made that platform work. So keep in touch with the people. And so those are the people that you're going to call on to build your team. And that team is what people are going to be investing in. So the number one thing is people are looking at the problem you're solving. Is this a real problem? Do you have real insight? They're going to be looking at the team. They're going to be looking at, can this business grow? Can this business scale? Is there an opportunity for me as an angel to make an impact and get a return on my investment? And at the end of the day, how quickly can this team raise additional funding? Because what you don't want is a team that cannot raise more money. I mean, at the end of the day, angels come in very early and you need money to scale. So if an angel is looking at a business that can scale, they also need to look at the fact that can this founder, can this team raise more additional capital? And those are some of the things that work. And what type of traction do you have by the time you get to the angels? And so if you're really solving a pain point, you're solving a problem, people are going to start to engage you. So it could be something as simple as we have 50 people on the wait list. We have people that are already testing this. And there's so many tools today that you don't actually have to go out and invest heavily in technology. You can actually build very simple beta platforms that people can actually start to try out, people can start to work on it, you can start to learn from your customers. So we really love when people are telling us the things they're learning from their customers, what customers are even saying, even though the product hasn't launched. So there's a lot of data you could actually bring to the table. Ideally, you can bring some revenue to the table to show that people actually are convinced about the solution and they've already started paying for it. So those are the things we look for when we're investing. We look for the team, we look for traction, we look for scalability, we look for, can they raise additional capital, and what problem are they solving? And not, I mean, they all have, I mean, are weighted and have different weights depending on the investor and sector, if it aligns with the angels thesis. So a lot of angels have things that they know, and they know that they can add value to. So I mean, for me, I know that I love media, I love tech, I really try to I love the consumer. I started my career consumer marketing, so I really understand consumer behavior. So I really try to be in the room where those type of conversations are happening, because once again, remember, angel investing, our checks are very small. We're here to add real value. Our checks are small. We're here to add real value and roll up our sleeves and try to make things happen for you. So we're trying to introduce you to potential customers, try to get things out of your way. So we, at the same time, I mean, if it's a really amazing business, we also want to make sure that we're adding value so that our checks go far and we get a real return on that investment.
Thank you so much. That was so helpful. And you mentioned you love media and tech so much, and I was actually going to ask, so some of your investments that were publicly available included Big About Media, Check It, Trove, and I just wanted to know why those particular startups. And it also seems like the focus of the African startup space, or where most funding goes to, is the tech space. And I just kind of wanted an insight as to what informed that decision, or where the interest came from as well.
So like I said, I mean, I started my career in consumer. I've worked in automobile, I've worked in media, I've worked in e-commerce. To me, the automotive industry is very technology driven to me. So it was literally learning a ton. DSTV is actually a lot of technology because it is a satellite company. It is a direct to home. You learn a lot around logistics in Africa, delivery to customer delighting. So really a lot of the things that I invest in really align with my experience. And so I'm able to introduce people to my networks. I'm able to help them tap into talent. Every once in a while, I'll see something and the person is just so amazing and convincing, and I'll invest in that company. And in those things, I mean, I just tell people I'm here if there's anything I can do, because I'm learning as this person. Or if I'm really trying to get into a new space and learn, and I want to be forced to learn, I will invest in something that is different and new. But I really always say, I know I can add value to this company. I can add value because I understand e-commerce. I've worked in e-commerce. I've worked in logistics before, trying to get things to customers across the continent. I've worked in logistics in the US. I've worked in television broadcasting. So I understand media. I understand how to communicate to consumers in that space. And you really want to be, I mean, at this part of the journey, when you're coming in as an angel, you really want to be adding real value to companies and to especially entrepreneurs. Maybe they don't have a lot of experience, but they're getting a lot of traction for their product. You really want to be there and adding real value. So that's part of why I do what I do. But also too, I mean, angels, and that's really important also, to find the right angel for your startup, so that you're getting the most out of that person. And so we really try to also, I mean, that's one of the things we do at Lagos Angel Network, is really trying to match people with the right investors that are interested in those sectors.
Thank you so much. And thank you for mentioning the Lagos Angel Network. So people who don't know about that now, you know, and you could sign up and visit the website. So speaking of factors or indicators that you would consider as an investor, a topical issue has been the ESG, which is environmental, social, and governance policies. So I was wondering, it's so topical now, and quite a significant number of investors really take that into account. So I was wondering, personally for you, is that something that ranks highly on your indicator list when you're making investments now, or maybe for your 2022 outlook for investments you want to make this year and going forward?
Look, I mean, it's really important for almost every investor to make sure that their investment is making a positive impact, that that we can continue to consider environmental sustainability and governance issues. Governance issues are huge. At any company that's going to scale in the future, you want to already see good signs of good governance, so that they're thinking about it, or that you as an angel investor can bring that expertise to the table. Environmental impact is going to be huge. We know that. We're looking at that. We are always engaging. But we also know that a lot of investments on the continent are impact investments. And so we know that one of the things we're doing as investors is making sure that there's job creation, there's a positive impact made on society, and that people are really solving real problems and not doing any harm to society. So I think that as we continue to invest, as the market gets bigger, ESG is going to be a huge factor in how investors actually respond to the market. I think investors are going to continue to look at that. I think international investors are going to also be looking at that. So it's really important for people to start to take that into consideration, no matter how early you start. You might think that, oh, we've just started this company, but keep it in the back of your mind. Make sure it's something you're considering, and be able to answer if an investor asks you about that, because investors will.
Thank you so much. So I think one that's a bit close to heart for me is female funding and female-led startups. And research has shown, Nairametrics actually reported that as of 2021, $1 million were raised by female-led Nigerian startups. But then research still shows that only 3% of capital in the entire continent between 2013 and 2021 only goes to female-led startups. So I was just wondering if you thought there was actually a gender bias in funding, and what active steps do you think are being done and could be done to bridge this gap? And I also know Atika Ventures is an initiative focused on making women capital allocators. So I don't know if you want to also speak to how you're helping and making an impact in bridging the gap for female founders.
Thank you so much for asking that. That's so important in any conversation we have about investing, about angel investing, and about the future of female entrepreneurs on the continent. So we know that of the almost 5 billion that was received, that was invested on the continent last year, venture funds, less than 1% of it went to female founders. And then when you look at founding teams with a female leader, just slightly a little bit more. So I think that one of the things we have to do is continue to raise consciousness. I mean, this is something I always ask founders when they come to me: who are the women on your team? We have to make sure that we work on pipeline, but also we have to give room to women. And that's why my co-founder and I, Ada Asakwe, are really excited that, number one, as 2 female founders, we're going to attract more female entrepreneurs just because we're here, we're doing this, and people now know we're doing this. We've consistently supported female founders. We've been investors in female founders, and we want to continue to do that. We want more people to come on the journey. I do also want to mention organizations like Rising Tide, RTA, I call them Rising Tide Africa, RTA. They are leaders in also getting female investors together, angel investors, to invest in female entrepreneurs, and also just general. But they're really out there trying to get more female. I think, and that's important. The more women that are investing, the more women that are also going to look up to those women and come and ask to be an entrepreneur and also get investment. And then the more women that actually are allocating capital and receiving capital. So we really have to do that. There is bias out there. I think that inherently there are more men that are just empowered to come out and start companies. And we need to give women those tools. We need to give women the confidence that they need to come and present. But there are a lot of female entrepreneurs that are not raising money. And so we also need to get them investment ready. What do we need to do to help them understand the opportunity that they can have and the scalability of their business by unlocking more capital? So I think that it's not that there are not as many women starting businesses, it's that we need to make sure that they understand the opportunity and the funding opportunity and how to even start that journey. And so that's why organizations like Rising Tide is great, Lagos Angel Network is great. We want more angels in the pipeline so that we can create more companies and that we can actually fund more companies, and then venture investors can fund more companies. And so that's also part of what Atika is really planning to do, is educate, empower, and put more women in front of investors as we also invest, so that other people invest along with us.
Thank you so much, and that's so amazing, my Atika, and I just look forward to seeing more female-led startups reaching unicorn level at some point.
I'm looking forward to it, but it's going to happen. It's coming. I know one of the things we discussed in the pre-interview, which I don't want us to lose, was around funding around fintech, and is fintech hugging all the funding? And there is a sense of that, but I think that what I wanted to do was just talk about the fact that, this is the beginning of our journey on the continent, and unlocking payments, unlocking the financial empowerment that we need is actually going to unlock consumer, which is why we're excited about the fact that we're now building these digital financial rails that are going to lead us to an empowered consumer that has access, that can actually afford products, that can actually participate in global commerce. And so for me, I'm excited, but I think that even when we look at the fintech funding, it's clustered among a few big players. And so I think that there's still a lot of undercapitalized, even fintech companies out there, and people are still building some great and amazing solutions for the continent, and we need more. I mean, in countries like South Africa, yes, there's a lot of fintech. There's a lot of fintech in Nigeria and Egypt, but then once you start to go down the line and you start to look at Francophone Africa, there's still a lot of fintech rails that need to be built, and some of the current fintechs that are in these major markets are going to have opportunity to scale there. And I think that's really going to be the beginning and the unlocking of the rise of the African consumer that we have for so many years been talking about. So I'm excited that fintech rails are being built. I'm excited that fintech companies are getting funding. And I know that this is only the beginning, and the next phase of funding is going to be much more diversified. You're already seeing that in healthcare. You're already seeing that in other consumer spaces. You're seeing logistic business. industries also get quite a bit of funding. So I think that this is just the beginning. The journey has just started when it comes to tech funding and venture funding on the continent, and I'm excited to be here.
Yeah. Thank you so much for that. That was very useful as well to mention. And speaking of which, and yeah, we're trying to so many founders, investors are all keen on developing the fintech space and just generally help startups, but it also seems on the continent, there are government policies that kind of hamper and just kind of slow down the progress. So as an investor, what do you think? How do you protect yourself against some of the uncertainty, or do you just go for it and hope that hopefully all your investment doesn't come crashing down someday?
No, I mean, I think that, we can't sort of sit down and watch. It could be easy to do that, but we can't. I mean, I think that as active angel investors that are really trying to develop the ecosystem, one of the things that startups and investors have been doing is really working with government on the startup bill. There are a number of people in the early stage investing ecosystem that are big parts of that to try to make sure that, number one, we give companies room to grow. Companies need to grow. We need to have a stable regulatory environment. So it's not that, it's just, I mean, we don't want that much change. We want people to know what's going to happen and they can grow in that environment. We want to make sure that where possible, that we are actually ahead of the challenges that we might be having. And if that is a communication challenge, that we're communicating with regulators, that we're explaining what's happening in the ecosystem to regulators. And also too, that we are making sure regulators understand that companies that are growing growth doesn't necessarily mean profit. And so how do we make sure that people understand those things? So really continuous engagement, things, initiatives like the startup bill is amazing. And I think this is just the beginning of many. If you look at the other, I mean, and I also think that, if we look at regulations that is really unlocking this growth. I mean, I think regulatory opportunities around 5G, has also been good for the ecosystem. I think when we look at policies around small businesses, they've been favorable to the ecosystem. So, I mean, I think there's a plus and minus to everything. And I think that what we have to do is really lean in and be advocates for the industry. So I'm excited that we're doing that. There's so many people in our ecosystem that are working hand in hand with government to create a healthy and stable regulatory environment. And I think that's the most important thing. And that also helps investors roll up their sleeves and lean in some more. So, and I think this is really where local investors become really important to companies. This is where angel investors really become important to companies because the networks are here locally on ground. We're able to call people, we're able to network with people, and we're able to really open doors for people. So that's why it's important to have local investors, angel investors that can actually call and make those and open those doors or break down those walls for you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, that's helpful. I agree. So coming from the legal perspective, what role do you think lawyers have, and what role can we play and help in proactively assisting and supporting stakeholders in promoting the growth and development of the Nigerian media and technology industry?
So number one, I mean, the one thing I've always said is that you don't have anywhere that, I mean, if you don't have an industry if you don't have a legal support. So we all need legal support when it comes to contracts, when it comes to understanding terms. Venture capital is there's a lot of buzzwords in it. I think it's really important for entrepreneurs to understand what they're signing. It's important for entrepreneurs to also protect early investors. Early investors want protection. It's really important for the legal community to be part of that journey, and also governance. I mean, we want to make sure that companies are properly registered, companies are keeping the proper books, people are auditing their books, and it doesn't matter how early, just start putting these things together, put them in your Google Drive, make sure that investors have access to it. Investors want to know that you're thinking about it, not necessarily that you have everything, but that you're thinking about it. There's a lot of convertible notes and safe notes that are flying around, making sure that those documents are localized. I mean, these are documents that investors use to invest. These are instruments that we use to invest, making sure that investors understand them, especially new investors, angel investors understand them, and making sure that entrepreneurs understand what they're making people sign, the obligation. I mean, I think that we've heard of quite a number of things going belly up with founders not keeping to their end of the contract. Most companies make sure that you have an employment contract with CEOs. Those type of documents, really, people need to understand them. People need to understand the responsibility. Remember, for some entrepreneurs, this is their first job. This is their first time working. And so they need that legal support. We work with a number of legal firms in the ecosystem to help us do much more interesting things around syndicating deals. This is when we get more people involved. It's not just one angel, more angels get involved and invest in those companies. And we need people like you to help us, number one, make sure everyone feels comfortable, make sure everyone knows where their money is going, and make sure people understand that, who's the trustee, who's that person's responsibility. If I move and I go to another country, am I still going to be able to get my money back? How do I get my money back? All these things are the things that the legal fraternity gets to really support, especially in a fast growing ecosystem like this, a young ecosystem like ours. We really do need that support. And I think that there are a lot of opportunities for great lawyers to really thrive and build amazing practices during this time. In 20 years, the story will be so different. So this is the best time for young lawyers to get involved and work in this space. And I mean that for media, and I mean that also for tech.
Okay. Thank you so much. Another question. So what are the common mistakes you think investors make just in general when making investments? Or because I guess not every investment could be perfect, and maybe it wouldn't be the same like returns you're expecting. So what do you think are common mistakes that could be avoided?
Investors never make mistakes.
Oh, okay.
No. I mean, we're all human. We all make mistakes. We all get overly excited. I think also another place where we really use legal teams is around due diligence. And in some of my early investments, I think, people introduced me to people. I really liked them. I don't think I was as disciplined about due diligence. And I think that actually I got burnt a couple of times and disappointed a couple of times. And I don't think that it wasn't that they were bad or people were bad. It just was that it would have been great if I had done my due diligence. So I think that as investors that are starting off, some of the things that you don't do is you don't do due diligence. Due diligence is worth it. It's worth paying for it. It is a paid service, and so you do have to pay for it and make sure it's done. But if you're writing a check to someone, it is worth the time and the trouble to do due diligence on them. So I think that is something that, as a first-time investor, as an early investor, I didn't do. Some of the investments I made till today, they've not been a problem. In spite of due diligence or non. Sometimes I also tell people, like, if there are bigger angels doing the deal, follow them and do due diligence. So piggyback on their due diligence. Other things is, and also too, some of the mistakes you make is not being decisive. So sometimes you see something, you really like it, it looks good, but you're not decisive and the deal is gone. These are fast moving companies. Sometimes they need those checks, they need to move on, and they need to close the round because the founder needs to get to work. And so sometimes you could just be busy as an investor thinking you'll get to it. Or sometimes it's also just like, you try to, sometimes this is so simple, some of the things that prevent you from making these decisions. It's like you go to your bank website, you just try to transfer the money. Either there's lack of connectivity that day, somehow the money doesn't get transferred that day. You say, oh, I'll do it later. And by the time you do it later, the founder's like, oh no, we've moved on, we've closed. So it's also missing deals sometimes and missing some some good things that you wished you would have been part of. But one of the things you learn also is that there's always another deal around the corner. So don't spend any time regretting the things you miss. So I think sometimes also just sort of are the macro things that can get in the way of operating in our environment. What else would I say? So I want to give you one more mistake. One of the other things that I probably did as an early investor was not being clear about the value I add to the company. Or not being able, not responding quickly enough because I wanted to do an investment and I didn't actually know how to ask for time. And so those are all things I've learned now. Like if I really want to do an investment and I really and I really believe I can add value to the founder, I'll have a conversation with them to say, look, I really want to do this. I don't have liquidity right now, because also an investor, you have to be disciplined about liquidity. You have to have a sense of how much you want to invest, a year, a month, a quarter. And so that investment might not fit into your quarterly goals. And so really having conversations with founders and being upfront about what I do have and what I don't have and how I can disperse and when I can disperse. I think these are all great lessons I've learned. And so now I'm very clear with the founder, this is what we have, and then also passing on deals quickly if it's not for me. And so those are all the things that in the beginning, you haven't developed your thesis, you haven't developed why you're doing this, what the opportunity is, and how you want to support founders. So as you go along, you really start to develop and hone where you add the most value, how you add the most value, and why you should be doing this. And so I think that the sooner an investor can get that down, the better. And so you're just much more efficient. You're an investor that founders like, because they know you make decisions quickly. And that is something I learned, and I'm happy I've learned that lesson now. It makes both of our lives easier.
Thank you for that. And I really like that you mentioned the points about due diligence, because as a lawyer and quite junior level who does a lot of due diligence, a lot of startups just tend to overlook that fact. And I'm glad you said it's a service worth paying for, because it saves you a lot of headache in the future. So Alikon, everybody's always here to serve everyone and help out with due diligence and advice.
And I also tell founders to do due diligence on their investors, so that they want to know what type of investor, how you add value, where you've been useful to other founders. So I always tell founders that I'm happy to connect them to other investments that we've done, so that they can talk to other founders.
I think that's super useful advice. We have some comments in the Q&A box, so I'll just read those out. Solomon said, what do you think about fintechs as an investment? I think you kind of touched on that, but if you want to expand on that as well.
So, I mean, go ahead. Go ahead.
Sorry, yeah, because Solomon also said, what are the most important sections for you in a pitch?
Okay. So we talked a little bit about fintech. I mean, I think once again, every fintech is not for every investor. Investors really need to understand your fintech, how your fintech is making an impact, how your fintech also plays along or plays with others in the market. Is it complementary to what already exists? Is it different? Is it disrupting something? We really need to understand that. Right now, there are just a lot of fintechs that sort of aren't doing the work to differentiate themselves from existing players in the market or existing solutions in the market. And so I really want people to, I still believe that there are a lot of solutions out there. I still believe that there's a lot of opportunity out there for us to fix the financial rails that we need to power Africa's economy. So we really need people to think deeper and really work hard, like work more on how you are really going to be complementary to what exists, amplify what currently exists, or you're really just disrupting what currently exists. And so that's something that we're looking at right now. What is the most important part of the pitch? I think for me, once again, it's different. For other angels, it's going to be different. For other investors, it's going to be different. The important things to me is, what is the problem you're solving? What is the team? I really like spending time on your team deck. I like to understand the team members, what they bring to the table. I really want to make sure that this is a team that when things get tough, they can really weather the storms, because there are a lot of storms on this journey. As an entrepreneur, there's a lot of ups and downs, but the ups are very short and you really find yourself in the weeds a lot. So I really want to see that this is a team that believe in each other and that we can believe in and I can invest in. The other thing is unique, like the differentiation part. What has given you a unique insight that you are using to solve this problem? What is it about your experience or your team members who's bringing something different to solve this problem? and traction. Like, do you have some traction? Have you proven that somebody wants to pay for this product? Do you have customers that are waiting to pay for this? It could be, like, once again, I said this, it could be a wait list, it could be anything, and scale. We want to understand how you're going to scale this, how you're going to grow this, and how you're going to generate revenue. And I think those things are important. And if someone can really communicate that well, what it shows us is that even if you need to change things, this team can do it. There's an insight into the problem. They understand the consumer market that they're going after. They understand the customer. It could be, even if it's enterprise, whoever your customer is, you understand that customer. Those are the things that I think you should spend a lot of time developing and really telling that story very well in your pitch.
Thank you very much. I think that answers the questions. Hanseli asked.
Oh, sorry, quickly here. I see Obina took my joke as investors never make mistakes to heart. That was a joke, just to make sure that was clear.
Yes, Obina. Thank you. Hanseli asked, asking about what to look into as a small startup operating in the Gambia. What role can a hub play to support such startups?
I mean, hubs are really, really great. I mean, hubs are great places. Number one, I know a lot of people find their co-founders in hubs. So hubs really play a big part of the ecosystem. I think in small markets, hubs can play a great place for discovering, for discussions, for really people looking at problems that they can solve, and then also engaging with angels. It's a great place to bring people in, have demo days, and luckily things are virtual now, so there's not, you can actually reach out to a global audience to pitch. But I mean, I've seen a couple of things from Gambia. There's some really interesting companies doing some cool stuff. I believe we've seen one or two decks that have come from Gambia. So I think that the ecosystem is going to continue to grow. I hope that people are developing solutions that can be scaled across the continent. I think that is going to be a key thing as people run hubs, really help people think about the continent and West Africa, how they can build solutions for the region.
Thank you so much. Franciane asked, are you open to invest in African animation 2D and 3D?
Yes, I mean, I'm always interested in a great business that makes sense with a great team and amazing vision. So you can reach out to me on Twitter. I'm on LinkedIn. I love when you reach out on LinkedIn. If the next thing to do, if you can send a PDF document, if you can send your deck, and then we can then set up, and then I would normally set up a meeting. I will let you know if this fits into our thesis or my current thinking at this time. Sometimes we might have a couple of conversations. So I'm sort of giving you a process now. We'll have a couple of conversations. It might be that I still want to wait. It might be that I'm ready to invest. It might be that I would like to get other angels involved in this deal, and we want to, we'll take it to different angel groups. I'm involved in about 2 or 3 angel groups, and we invest actively, we screen actively, and we are very, we know that there's an opportunity, and we're excited that the opportunity is here on the continent, and we're ready to meet that opportunity by investing in builders, innovators, and dreamers.
Thank you so much, Franciane. I think you should definitely reach out.
But I'm on LinkedIn. I always connect on LinkedIn, and I'm also on Twitter. Those are my 2 entry points, and we can take it from there. Mimi, I think you have all my social
details, yes, and we posted them on our social media pages as well. So please do check those and reach out to Ms. Alabi. Abajide said, thanks for the insights from your experience across different industries. What's the key difference you've experienced between investing in entertainment, that is movies, and investing in tech products?
So one of the things that's important is angel investing is patient capital. It is really capital that grow, that goes the distance with you. And so angels know that they're on this journey for 5 to 6 years. They know that this isn't sort of an overnight investment. And I think that that's what you need in tech. That's also what you need in media. You need patient capital. And I think those are the things that have been barriers to entry into the industry for investors in the past, is that a lot of investments in Nigeria have been really hard to justify when people were getting 17, 18% on treasury bills. And I think now that people are looking at alternative investment assets, this is a great time to invest in startups. So I hope that answers your question. I think that it's a different model for media. It's a different model for technology. I mean, it's sort of, you look at, I mean, when you look at a technology company that is building a solution that literally in the next 3 years will probably scale across 3-4 countries, it's a very different model to someone building out a slate of films. Maybe they're building out 4 or 5 slate of films, and who's going to, where those films going to be broadcast? What is the cinema model for that? Those are all the things you have to model out. So where are your revenue models going to come from? Are they all local? Is this going to have international cinema run? Is it going to own, those things are things that have to be part of your plan that an investor will look at. But remember, there are people that are literally just excited and interested in investing in that sector. So they will invest in you if they believe in you and your team, and they believe that you guys are going to do something different when it comes to storytelling, or when it comes to building solutions, or when it comes to fintech, and they believe that you guys can implement. You'll find that investors will invest. But once again, it's good to have traction. So it is good to have some sort of evidence that you've done something like this, or you've worked on a team that did something like this. Especially when it comes to film, people want to know that you have some experience, on a winning team that's built or had a successful product out there in the market.
Thank you so much, I think that answers the question. And one more question we have here. Okay, no. Yemi asked, you mentioned investing in tech companies, but what would be your advice for a new film and TV production company seeking angel investors? Proving potential ROI in the creative industries is oftentimes a challenge.
It is. And so, I mean, I think that that's why it's great now that there are quite a number of distribution outlets, there are streamers, there are traditional broadcasters. There is a lot of appetite for content and a lot of appetite for African content. But I'm not going to lie to you, it is very difficult. Media is difficult. But I mean, a lot of investors also know that media is difficult. There are some sectors that people know is difficult and it's long, and you have to find those people. And people want to make sure that, I think the idea of finding an angel investor, don't limit yourself to angel investors. Also look at creative ways of funding your project. So there could also be ways that actually when you pitch these projects to broadcasters or streamers, that they could also put in you could get some minimum guarantees. If you're able to show investors that you have a minimum guarantee, or you actually have a letter of offer, which means that someone is going to buy this, or those are the things that make people want to write a check. So really try to get those things on board. So really try to make sure that people know, where is this going to be shown? What is the potential? What is the opportunity for that market? And also to how many of these are you going to be able to do? And how often are you going to need to raise capital?
Being, how do you typically make an investment? Equity, debt, or hybrid? And the second one, what is the typical time horizon of your investments, and what are your preferred exit strategies?
Okay. So when it comes to, with angel investing, it's really, a lot of times you're following the founders, and also it's just so early in the game. That we do convertible debt. We do a convertible note, which is debt. We also do safe notes. I think that in today's market, everyone's using a safe, especially for early stage investing. I think it's probably, I think in the last year, I think everything we've done is a safe note, and that's the preferred way for almost everyone in the market today. There was another part of the exits. I think, everybody loves exits. We love exits that give us a return on investment. We look at secondary exits. We look at exit as we go. Those are really the predominant ones in the market today for angel investors. There are some acquisitions that we've seen people exit on. We're not really at the stage where there's only one IPO that's so far in our market, so that's really not a conversation right now. But we do see the future for IPOs. We see a future for more exits, but angels do like to exit. So what happens when angels exit is they actually reinvest in the ecosystem. So angels try to get that liquidity out so that they can reinvest. Most people that angel invest, they're just trying to get an exit to reinvest, which is exciting. And that's really the tradition. That's what we've seen traditionally happen.
Thank you so much. So I'm going to put you on the hot seat now and pose 4 questions to you, and you have about a minute to answer them.
Okay.
So first question, what is the best investment advice you've ever received?
Best investment advice. Believe in the founder. Believe in the founding team. Like, if you don't believe in the founding team, it's a no for you. Let your no be no. Like, once you say no, move on. That's one.
Second question. So if I gave you $1 million right now, how will you invest it?
Oh no. Is it me?
Oh, this is lagging.
Hello?
Hi, can you hear me? Hello? I'm having connectivity issues. Hello? I think we lost Miss Alabi for a second.
I lost you for a minute. I'm back.
Okay, great. Thank you. Fantastic.
So you said the best advice is to believe in the team, and if you don't believe in the team, let your no be no and move on.
Okay, that's solid advice, actually. Thank you. So second question, if I gave you $1 million right now, how will you invest it?
If I had $1 million today, I am really, I'm Web3 curious. I'm getting into Web3. I've just joined a company doing NFTs. So I will definitely I would invest there. I would invest in media. And so those are the 2 things I would do. I would invest half of it in Web3. I would invest half of it that's personal investment. I would do that. And then the other half in consumer, just because I love consumer media and tech. So I would do those 2 things.
Okay, thank you. Next question. What is the greatest pleasure of being an angel investor?
Watching people, just being part of people's story. There is nothing that brings you more joy on a crappy day. You see something on TechCrunch, you see something on TechPoint, and just knowing that you believed in this person, you saw the potential, you saw the dream, just seeing that come. The one thing human beings love is helping other people. And so there's just nothing that brings you more joy than seeing someone else succeed in their story. It is the best feeling when you see people succeed.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. And the last hot seat question being, what is your life's philosophy?
Oh, wow. I just, there's this, I think it's living, daring greatly. It's sort of like the man in the arena. And I just always say, be the woman in the arena. Like sitting back and, being the critic, there's no joy in that. Just always be the woman in the arena. That's my, so when I really wanted to go deep into tech, I just got involved. I started being engaged. I started going to events, started talking to people. Just be the woman in the arena.
I love that. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Ms. Alabi, for your time. This has been super insightful, and I'm sure everyone listening today really enjoyed it and found it very insightful. Thank you so much for your time, and I personally learned so much as well.
Thank you.
And
Thank you so much for having me. And once again, everyone, you can connect with me on Twitter. You can connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm happy to do a first look at your pitch, at your deck on LinkedIn. And then from there, we can set up a conversation. I have office hours normally on Fridays, and we'll give you at least 30 minutes of my time to check if there's a real alignment. So wishing everyone the best of luck on this journey. For angels or potential angels, or if you're thinking about being an angel, join us on this journey. Let's really try to change Africa. Let's be part of this amazing revolution of building the next innovation revolution, and really just the people that are going to change this world. So I'm excited about the future.
Thank you so much for that and being so welcoming. Everyone who wants to reach out, please do. And Ms. Alabi's details are on all our social media pages, so please feel free to contact us as well. And for any questions unanswered, we'll deal with those on our social media pages. Thank you everyone for attending and taking time out of your busy day. Have a lovely day, everyone. Bye.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.